Hey guys, Magic Man here, and today I'm just bringing you a sort of some gameplay footage to watch while I talk about the new rank season that's coming up. So it's basically all but confirmed that it's going to be Tier 6. It's going to be on the next public test server. They're going to be testing it out. Now, with Tier 6 coming up, there's going to be not as many choices as there were at Tier 7, but hopefully it won't be quite as a stagnant sort of gameplay as it was last season with all of the things, all of the ships that had smoke. And the Belfast is mainly the biggest culprit for why the gameplay was so stagnant, because it has hydroacoustic, it has radar, and a smoke screen. I mean, you could just sit in your smoke and be the be-all, end-all of everything. The fact that you have radar and a smokescreen and hydroacoustic is just, it's basically, this premium ship is pay to win at its best. And luckily, I feel like this is the only premium that's really, really overpowered. I'm glad Wargaming hasn't made a habit of making ships like this, because this ship is just ridiculous. Now moving on. Now, I will probably be playing Destroyer for this rank season. I'm going to give it another shot. I'll probably be playing the Ernst, which is a Tier 6 German cruiser. Or not cruiser, but destroyer. You can get the concealment down to 6.6 kilometers. You have the option of using two different gun sets, 128 or 150 millimeter. And you can get 8 kilometer torpedoes. And the only downside to this ship is that it is fairly massive for a destroyer, but we'll see how it plays out. It does have hydroacoustic, so it's got that going for it. I feel like that's going to be pretty good for controlling caps, especially if the enemy destroyer smokes up and is unable to spot anything. He's going to put himself in a very dangerous situation going up against a German cruiser or German destroyer. Now, I will probably be using 150 millimeters on my German destroyer, just because I feel like the destroyer engagements are probably going to be pretty short and limited, and I feel like the 128s don't have the alpha damage or the alpha strike to really do a whole lot against the enemy destroyer. So I'm going to be using the 150s because they deal more damage initially. The reload on the 128 I think is like 4.5 seconds versus the 7.5 on the 150s, but I can deal with a 7.5 second reload if I'm going to be dealing more damage before that enemy destroyer becomes unspotted or runs away or smokes up or whatever. But we'll see how it plays out. If it turns out that the rate of fire is going to be more important, then I will definitely switch back to the 128s. Now, with that being said, the 128s will do plenty of damage very quickly if you get the broadside of a destroyer. If you're able to use AP on them, the Germans do a ton of damage. Now, with that being said, with it being ranked, once I think you get into the higher ranks, I think people are going to be wise to this, and they're not going to give you the broadside. They are definitely going to turn into your ship or turn out and just give you an angled target to shoot at, which is going to nullify your AP. Now, the Japanese actually have 3 different choices for Tier 6. I think the Fubuki is the only one that has 10 kilometer torpedoes. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think the Shinome and the Hatsuharu only have 8 kilometer torpedoes. I could be wrong. I don't play Japanese destroyers, so I'm not 100% on that. The Japanese destroyers just don't really interest me. Their gun systems are too bad, and they rely so heavily upon their torpedo systems that I just don't like it. That's just my personal preference. In the past, Japanese destroyers have been good in ranked play because of their concealment, and because, well, they've got a decent smoke screen. It's not as good as the Americans, but it's sort of the middle ground between German smoke screen and the American smoke screen, which is very helpful to your team, because if you have a smoke screen and you can cover the rest of your team, that's good for you. You can spot for them, and they can shoo away any enemy destroyers that might be bothering you. And with that being said, You're probably going to have games where you really struggle if you go up against another good destroyer captain in a Japanese destroyer. And you're going to have games where you do really well because maybe the enemy battleship player or cruiser is just, incredibly ignorant to what your ship can do. I think in ranked there are some... I don't think anybody's really dumb. I think they're just, ignorant is not a bad word. It's just kind of like you lack the knowledge. So it's just people are lacking knowledge of what the opposite ships can do, and then they just sort of, kind of let bad things happen to them because they don't know. So anyways, Japanese destroyers, yeah, they'll probably also be a strong choice for rank. The Tier 6 American destroyer, the Farragut, I think is going to be hamstrung due to the fact that its torpedoes are only 6.4 kilometers. Even with Concealment Expert, you're still going to get spotted before you can get in range to fire off your torpedoes. And that's really going to hamper your ability to control caps and do damage, really, because if you open fire in rank play, everybody is going to there's no doubt in my mind from what I've seen in the past that everybody on the enemy team will usually, once you get into higher ranks, just try and blow the enemy destroyers away. Like, you are priority number one. So that's one thing that I think the American destroyers are going to be hamstrung by, is the fact that they don't really have usable torpedoes. They're really only if you're being rushed and you're in a smoke screen can you use those things. And so, if you're in a Farragut and you are trying to use your torpedoes, you're going to get spotted. The enemy team's going to see you. You're probably going to get blown out of the water before you can even get close to launching them. So, while the Farragut does have good gun range and a good rate of fire, 128mm guns are not really going to do a whole lot of damage against any of the ships that you're probably going to be seeing in ranked. And it's just, I don't think it's going to be a good choice. The one thing the Farragut does have going for it, though, is its long duration smoke screen. It puts out a ton of puffs, and you're going to be able to make huge smoke screens for your team that are going to last a while, which is going to be good for your team. But if you're going up against enemy destroyers that also have smoke screens and they have usable torpedoes, they're probably going to come out on top. But it just depends on how well your team synergizes together. So moving on from that, you've got your Russian destroyer, the Genemini. That thing, it's only got 4-kilometer torpedoes, but it is going to be a good gunboat. I don't know how much damage you'll be doing. It kind of depends. I don't think that it's going to do very well either, just because it doesn't have the concealment to be that great, and the fact that it's not extremely fast for a Russian destroyer, so you'll probably be easier to hit. I just don't think they're going to last very long. I don't think you're going to see very many of them because of that. So, moving on to the cruisers. At Tier 6, you've got the German cruisers, which are very lightly armored. They do have, 6-kilometer torpedoes, but honestly, with the amount of armor that they have, I can't really recommend them. They're going to be very easily citadelable. They're going to take a lot of damage from HE, so it's just not going to be good choice overall for your team, because you're just not going to be able to last long enough to really do a whole lot of damage. That being said, the premium cruisers at Tier 6, I think there's only the Molotov and the Perth. The Perth might be okay. It does have a smoke screen, and you can fire HE, so it'll probably be a pretty good HE spammer, and the fact that you'll be able to move at a quarter speed with that smoke screen is going to be good for moving around and staying, basically untouched, or because it'll make it hard to hit you. A lot of players are really practicing shooting into smoke screens, just aiming at the muzzle flashes, and people are actually getting pretty good at it, I've noticed. So sitting in a smoke screen and sitting still is not going to be a good idea, but we'll see how that plays out. So I think the Perth will probably be okay. The Molotov, I don't believe that that ship is going to do very well. It only has 16 millimeters armor all around. I can't recommend using it. It only has like 28,000 hit points, so you know, that ship just takes a ton of damage anytime it gets shot by anything. It just, the armor is basically destroyer armor. While it does have great guns, and you probably will be able to do some damage with it, you're just not going to do a whole lot of damage. Now the Leander, it does have a smoke screen. It's a pretty good ship. You'll be able to have the single launch torpedoes that go out to 8 kilometers. And it's a fairly maneuverable ship, and you can get the concealment down to 9.3 kilometers. So I think you'll be seeing a lot of the Leander. The British cruisers in particular are just so good because they just have a portable smoke screen. You can hide at any second. And then you've got the American cruiser, the Cleveland, which is going to be good. It's a good fire starter. The Arcs, however, not that great, and it doesn't have a whole lot of armor. The Cleveland and the Bujoni are basically almost kind of the same ship. The Bujoni's basically just got better guns. It's a little bit bigger, turns a little bit slower, and you do have a spotter plane in it, which is good. But I think overall the Bujoni is going to be a better choice over the Cleveland because of its guns. But that's just my opinion, like I've said. And the Japanese cruiser, the Alba, I think it's going to be a solid choice. It's got a little bit of armor, and I mean, it's got 203s, so you'll be able to penetrate most things with HE, and yeah, you'll be able to do quite a bit of damage against other cruisers as long as they give you a broadside. But we'll see how it all plays out. That's just kind of my selections. I don't really care too much about battleships. I'm pretty sure it's either going to be like a Bayern or Dunkirk. You know, the Fuso is lightly armored, but battleships, I think, they're all pretty much almost the same. They're equally good.